Hi, my name is Florine, and I'm a front-end developer.
And I'm Adrian, and I'm a designer. And today, we're back in school, so sit down and shut the fuck up.
Well, now you have sat down and shut up. Well, not that we're complaining, but yeah, we're going to talk about what should you learn and how do you keep up. And yeah.
So, first, about learning skills. This is a Ramune, it's a Japanese soda. Many of you probably know it. And it actually takes some skill to open this. Actually, going to attempt to do that, I'll probably embarrass myself on the worldwide interwebs.
And you will probably make a mess. So,
knowing myself, it's highly likely.
What do you have to? What are you doing here?
I'm supposed to. There's a marble in there, and I'm supposed to press it down or press it out. Actually, you're supposed to take off the ring, otherwise it doesn't really work. And then,
and then you make a big mess.
And then I make a mess, as we predicted. But it's called a Cod-necked bottle. It's a very old principle. Oh, it stinks.
Yeah.
But there's a marble in there that was stuck up here, and you basically push it out to pour your soda.
Yeah. And I think this is a good way, a good moment where we have to do an emergency stop to clean this up. So now that we got everything cleaned up,
ta-da!
Here's our drink.
Here's our drink, yeah. So
it looks like chemical green.
It's good.
Let's go for it.
Cheers.
Chemical green.
It tastes green.
This is new taste, chemical green.
I just call it green for simplicity's sake. It's not horrible.
Okay, let's get back on subject.
So now that I've learned not to do that, let's get back to what do we learn. And we talk about what do you learn in relation to your work on the web, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. What do you learn as a designer, but what do you want to learn as a front-end developer or a developer in general?
That's actually a very hard question, I think. If someone's comes up to you, let's say at a conference, and he asks you, well, I'm a designer or a developer and I want to learn something, what should I learn to be up to date or whatever, then I would go like this.
I'm going to be like, it depends. It depends is a magical answer to everything.
So it would appear.
But you're mostly just an asshole.
Yeah. It's very hard to come up with a concrete answer for that, because I think the basic question is, what has value? What has value over time? Because I mean, you can learn anything you want.
Yeah, you can.
It's still a bit sticky, by the way. You can learn anything you want, but will that be of value to you when you invest X hours to learn something? Is that going to be still relevant in, let's say, 6 months or a year or 2 years? Yeah. Is the weight worth the pull?
But that's something you should always ask you. There is one exception to this rule, though. You can just learn something for fun.
Fun is a legit reason to learn something, yeah.
But
it helps if you have fun while you're learning it. You will learn it quicker. At least that's my experience. If you're having fun, then it doesn't feel like a chore.
Yeah, but if you're doing something for fun, you don't really have to think about, is this still useful in 6 months? Because that doesn't really matter in that context.
No, that's you and your Haskell experiments, yeah?
Haskell has been around for quite some time, and it will be around for quite some time. So
don't
mock me.
I'm not debating that. I'm just saying, will it be of value to you?
In my day-to-day work, maybe not.
There you go. But fun is a good reason to learn something, and it's a good way to learn something. But there's actually been some discussion amongst us about that. There's a lot of people who say, well, just learn X or just do X, because you read online or you heard at a conference or from a friend that you're supposed to do this, so that's what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's something you should be very cautious about. I think you should always think, okay, why am I mean, to get started with something or when you're just playing, it's fine to sometimes just do something and do because it's in a blog, but you should be very wary why you're doing something and do I understand what it does, because.
And what will be the long-term value of it?
That, but also what will be the short-term results. let's take, for example, how we're currently setting up front-end project or web development project in general. For me, I think it's quite ridiculous that we have to run 20 lines on a terminal and install 20 packages, maybe multiple package managers to just get up and running. So you have to learn that, and you have to, and I don't think a lot of people know actually what each of these 20 lines or each of these steps do. They just do it and they just run it, and it can be dangerous. There has to be just one tutorial where there will be like rm minus rf /.
Could be risky. I mean, I admit that, especially in long-term projects that maybe other designers have worked at before me, that I have to add something to, like add a feature or whatever, I am required to install packages and stuff that I don't know why they're required. I don't know why they're in there. I'm assuming the developer put them in there for a good reason, but I don't know why.
Yeah. But that's in a relatively safe environment.
I would say so.
Yeah, because it's on your team or it's from people you work with. But when you're learning something, because I think we're getting a bit off track here. When you're learning something, for me it works best to read an article about it and then try something out and then see if I understand it and maybe run some code and see how that works and trying to understand what I'm doing and why it does something, why the input I gave will result in the output that comes out of the thing I'm building.
Okay. But then, sorry to derail you quickly. So you learn mostly by reading blog articles and posts about things. I actually do that too. I really like, for instance, Stack Overflow, where they use a lot of, for instance, JS fiddles. So you can see how they came to the solution that they're proposing. And you can see it in action before you actually have to put in a lot of time to figure it out for yourself or actually try to implement it in your project to see if it would actually fit your needs.
Exactly. Well, but if you're let's go with this. If you're looking for a solution to something and your first step will probably be Google, and then your next step will be that the first 5 results will be from Stack Overflow, and then you go to Stack Overflow, and then you go from there. But isn't there a risk of you just, again, you see something, you copy that, and works, done?
I sometimes have that luxury because I work with very, very good front-end developers who will actually help me iterate on what I found.
Okay.
But it's very, very hard to find something that exactly fits your needs. It's very hard to find something that you can basically just copy and paste in your work, and then it'll just magically work. Usually it requires some fine-tuning, some editing, and that requires you to understand some of the basics behind it.
Okay.
And this is especially true if you are looking for JavaScript snippets, for instance, or jQuery snippets.
Yeah, that brings me to another point. You kind of started with, you said, JavaScript or jQuery, and it's a bit true for, you use Sass for your CSS, right? Yeah, we do as well, but a thing we see is that young developers getting started, they start with Sass and they don't know CSS really that well.
So they have trouble understanding what the cascade actually does, for instance.
For instance, because that's a really powerful tool. Or that you have people that write, look, only 5 lines of Sass.
Which will then generate 200 lines of CSS.
Yeah, very clever, guys, very clever.
It's not that impressive.
No.
So, I can't do it either. To be very honest, I only write Sass, so...
Yeah, but it is good that you have basic knowledge of CSS, because that's what's the output, and that's what the browser will work with.
Yeah.
So it's very good that you know the basics and you know what a class is and what certain selectors do and what a cascade is, because you all need to know that to be able to use a tool like Sass to the full potential. And I think that kind of the same with jQuery. I mean, jQuery is really cool. It helps bring the web forward. I mean, it's a very easy interface to get things done.
It writes very fluently, I think.
Yes, but it does worry me that there are people out there who put on their CV rather, I'm an expert at jQuery than at JavaScript.
Which is a bit strange.
Yeah.
And it's you're also always create a dependency. So you always need the jQuery library in there
Yeah.
somewhere, otherwise your stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, there's actually a site that's called "You Might Not Need jQuery." So
That's a website.
yeah,
Okay,
and
we'll put
it
the link
just-
in the description.
Yeah, it has examples how you could do certain things in jQuery just with regular browser APIs. So you don't need jQuery for everything, and that's like a pattern that you have a problem, and okay, let's just use X instead of having really think about, okay, do I really need X?
Yeah, because that's what they're familiar with.
Yeah.
So basically what we're saying is learn the basics to build a foundation. And most of all, since all of these technologies are built on top of each other, like jQuery is built on top of JavaScript and Sass is built on top of CSS.
No, not exactly. They will output or
Yeah, okay.
but
they
I get
are
the idea.
related.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they depend on each other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it would be better to understand what the foundation technology actually does before you move on to the next one.
Exactly, but at least have a. You don't have to be a Sass or CSS or JavaScript expert. But it really helps to know the basics and know the. Yeah, you don't have to know all DOM API functions because you might not need them, and in a lot of cases you can Google it, and in a lot of cases you are better off with jQuery. Still in 2015, this may be true.
Okay. I was not that acutely aware that is actually the case. For me, it's always, if you add a library, basically you're adding stuff that you probably don't need. So you're adding, when you add jQuery to your website, you're adding some of the functions you're going to use, but there will also be stuff in there that's just, it's loaded, but it's not used.
Probably actually more like you will use like 5%.
Probably less than that.
Unless you have, again, a big website. There are always cases where it's burnt and then where it's a good idea.
And that actually kind of bothers me. Like I make a one-page site that has some JavaScript functionality, and the first thought was, you know some JavaScript or jQuery, so you go to jQuery.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
Yeah, that's one of the dangers if you don't of not knowing the basics, and you just it's like when you are a hammer, all your problems are nails, and so if you know jQuery, you're going to use jQuery for every problem, and where you might not even need jQuery, or there are better alternatives.
Yeah. So back to learning.
Okay. Yeah.
You said you have to be critical and you have to look at what you're intending to learn, and basically always ask yourself, why would I need to learn this? And it's easier to make that distinction if you already know the basics. So if, for instance, you know JavaScript, it will be easier for you to assess whether or not you need to learn jQuery, for instance, than if you know no JavaScript and start with jQuery. If you know nothing, that's going to be very hard for you to tell
if this is a good thing or not.
This is a good thing or not.
Yeah.
Because for instance, I started with jQuery. I didn't know any JavaScript before I started tinkering with jQuery, and now I feel that I need to learn JavaScript because I can't make full use of jQuery
without knowing having the power
essential
of
basics,
and the power of JavaScript at your disposal.
Exactly, and that's when I started doing that. I started finding out, why am I doing stuff in jQuery, which creates the dependency on the library, when I can just almost as easily write it in just plain vanilla JavaScript.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that holds really true for. We talked a lot about JavaScript right now, but I don't think when you have a tool like Sass, that's a bit different.
How do you mean that's different?
Well, you can do. Of course, you can write CSS without Sass. I hope you all know.
You don't want to.
Well,
I mean,
maybe sometimes you want to. If you have a little page where you need like 5 lines of JavaScript, Sass, of course, not JavaScript, or 10 lines of CSS. Why would you use something like Sass to make something complicated? I feel like people really are good at making things complicated or complex.
And then say, yeah, it's much easier.
It's much easier, but think about it. If in a year you will use another tool or you will use another framework and you have kind of forgotten, or well, it's less relevant knowledge, so it gets a bit rusty, but you have to change something in that project. Or let's say you have a new colleague and he's just fresh out of school and he has never even heard of what's this thing called Sass. We don't use that anymore.
And that's the problem. I mean, many of these things, they go obsolete at some point, even though they might not look it. I mean, well, you know, the lifespan on the web is fairly short. So if you
goes really fast.
Really fast. If you look at 5 years down the line, it might be here, but it might not be.
Yeah.
You don't know. So that's also a problem. If you invest a lot of time in I'm going to call them add-on technologies, like, you know, Sass is sort of
tools.
They're basically tools, right?
They're like, they're mostly like kind of like glue when you need it to put two pieces of wood together, but yeah, they're not part of the structure. They're just there.
They're not the wood.
No, they're not the thing you're making. They're just a helper.
Yeah, exactly. So it basically makes it simpler to join parts or make certain shapes.
And that's what jQuery does, and that's what Sass does.
Yeah. So I would be very wary of investing too much time into learning these tools, because you don't know how long they will live. Now, we have some insight in, for instance, jQuery has been around for quite a long time.
Yeah, and I don't think that, and I think it will be around for quite
some time to come, or at least for what counts on the internet as a long time.
Yeah.
So it might be worthwhile, and even if it were to go out of style in 5 years, if you know it now, it will still be valuable to you for the next X years. So.
Yeah. But let's say, if you knew JavaScript, let's start today, and I'm a junior developer, fresh out of school, and I have no JavaScript or jQuery experience whatsoever, and I have to make a choice whether I'm going to spend time learning jQuery or plain JavaScript.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the better option is to learn JavaScript first, and maybe of course, you can use jQuery. No one says you can't, but
you're probably going to have to.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, as soon as you're plugged in on a project, you're going to hit the ground running, so you might have to use whatever's there.
I agree with you there, but still, it helps that you should invest time in learning the basics and how does JavaScript work, because you may not know. Maybe in 5 years we got the new cool library, framework, whatever, and your jQuery knowledge isn't worth anything anymore. And if you had learned JavaScript, you could
pick that up again,
hit the ground running.
Yeah, and you could probably learn, if you know the basics, you can also learn subsequent or related technologies easier.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you know JavaScript, it's easier to learn jQuery than if you just start with jQuery and then try to understand JavaScript.
I think so.
That would be probably much harder. Yeah. Okay. So basically, be very critical of what you intend to learn, and I mean, learning for learning's sake is good if you enjoy it. Fun is a good reason to learn something, but when you have to make a choice between different technologies you want to learn, and especially if it's from a business perspective, be very, very critical. Ask yourself, why do I need this, or why would I do this,
and what will it bring me in, say, 5 years? And I think you can always bet on standards. I think that's always a good bet.
Yeah, bet on the basics.
Yeah,
on the foundations.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, we're going to wrap up here, I think. Thanks for liking, commenting, and subscribing. And thanks to our sponsors, Digitaint and Asphalt Photo.